Hi, this is Chongkem. Welcome to Ruby Chess version 4, part 4. Okay, so let's see where we left off. Okay, so we have a failing test because of rook e1. We have a king set up for a castle, but the white rook on h1 is trying to take the king. So we should not allow taking of your own pieces. So let's get out and see where we need to make the change. It looks like possible moves. Oh, we should run C tags. Okay, so now everything's up to date. So we look at possible moves. Okay, so we see the pieces that are able to attack that square, um, but we need to filter it out. So here we are. Here we have uh, the list, and we should only include this unless uh, there's a piece, and that piece color uh, is equal to the um, P color. So the piece that you're moving, it has to, if it's the same color, then we're not going to include it. That's why it's unless. But because we're using an if condition here, there's going to be nils in our list, so we need to make sure we get rid of them by saying compact. All right, so we went past that error. Now we're up to the second error, which is that the difference is that we have long castle here and short castle here. All right, so the short castle should not be included. So let's see why it was included. It would be under find. So in find, we look at the king movement right here, and we see that for the king movement, if the king is going to castle, so this is looking at the castling movement here. We actually need to check the castling status. So does it include, if you're white, it would be capital K, otherwise lowercase k. Okay. And um, this should make it pass, but if it doesn't, then that means that we need to make another test. So we need to make another test all the way up here where we're setting up a position. And if we have a position where we have a let's see, a king on e1 and a rook on h1, then we want to make sure that this is equal to the same thing, position king on e1 and rook on h1 with the, now I'm going to specify the castling flags explicitly by saying that this should only have the k. Since you have no black pieces, black castling should not be allowed. That's why we don't have lowercase q and lowercase k. And capital Q, which is a queenside castle, should not be included because we don't have a rook there. All right, so oh, we're missing a bracket. Okay, so we save. All right, this is happening because of inspect. So let's just make inspect. Okay, we're just making a copy of 2s. So it's going to look basically the same except a few modifications. So for the board, it's going to be a more compressed form. So this is a string that represents the row. And there's going to be dashes in there, so we're just going to replace the dashes with the number, how many times those dashes appear. So the size of those dashes. And we're going to replace the character turn with a slash. The turn is going to be W or B. All right, so that should take care of that. So let's see what's going on. Okay, so this is much better. Now we can see that the board is identical. Everything else is identical except for the castling. So we need to set up the castling. Castling. So that would be right here on the initialize. So when we're initializing, we hard-coded this, but instead let's call a function called castling default. Okay, so we start off with a string, an empty string, and we return that string. And we're going to add capital K if the piece on the board, the E1 square. Actually, if it's white, it's E1. Otherwise, no, it's actually E1. Because we're just specifically looking for the E1 square for the capital K. And there's a rook. So board H1, there's a rook. Okay, and for the queenside castle, king is in the same position, but the rook is on A1. All right, and for lowercase k, which is black, actually we can just copy this because we're just going to lowercase these here, and we're going to change these into 8s. All right, so let's see. All right, so look, it looks good. So let's see if it passes. Okay, so that part of it passes, and we see that castling is not there anymore. Now we also have to handle long castle, and that should be pretty simple. Okay, long castle. Okay, so here we are. Back here, we'll just make a copy of this because the logic is going to be basically the same. But the location of the pieces are going to be different. So if you're going to be doing a queenside castle, your location is going to be going to C1 or C8. King location is still the same, and the castling we're looking for a capital Q or a lowercase q, and this should handle the. Okay, so this should handle the long castle. Okay, so that's good. So we have that taken care of. So everything passes. All right. So let's think about some of the improvements that we can make to these tests. One of the problems is that now that we're starting to get a little bit more complicated, we're going to go into more complicated movements. We should put some notations here. So for now, I'll just say it allows rook moves. And okay, leave this like this. Just so that it has a better description. And this would be, it allows bishop moves. Okay, and this one is actually more about castling as opposed to the king. It does have king moves, but specifically I'm looking here, I'll just say allows king moves including castle. And this is allows king moves including queenside castle or long castle. Okay. All right. So everything should still pass. Okay. All right. Some more conditions. It should not allow capturing your own piece. Actually, that is taken care of. That is taken care of because of the test that we did over here, where we saw that the rook was taking the king, and so so that's kind of taken care of. Okay, we should at least see a position where a capture is happening. So it allows piece capture. So let's put a position with a rook on e4 and a rook on e6. And right now we'll just set it equal to null so we can just copy this. So it's much easier to copy it and just eyeball it. Okay, so we can just copy that and see if it makes sense. Okay, this should pass. Okay, so let's see. We have the rook on e4, and the thing that I'm looking at is when the rook is on the e file, it doesn't go past e6. So it says e6, which is the capture, but there's no e7, which is good. Okay, so this looks like a valid capture. Okay, so rook, bishop, make sure that the knight moves the way it should. It allows knight moves. Okay, okay, I'm gonna put a knight on a3, and actually first on e4. When I do it on e4, then I should expect there to be 8 of them. So let's just see what it looks like. Actually, this is not going to do anything. I have to say possible. Okay. Okay, so this looks, let's see, looks right. All right, so knight e4 to g5, that's a valid square. g3 is a valid square. Okay, this looks right. And if it happens to be on the edge, so let's put a knight on a1, for example. So if I do possible moves, then this, okay, so we can actually enumerate this because there should only be 2. There should be b3 and c2. So b3, knight c2, so that should pass. Oh, we have a lot of junk here. Okay. Okay, so it all passes. So we have, it looks like all the available pieces that is like rook, knight, bishop, king. Oh, we need a pawn. I mean a queen. All right, so let's take a look at the queen. And this time, let's do it a different way by using a black queen. So allows queen moves. Okay, put a queen, a black queen on e4, and say turn is black. And let's see what we get. Undefined method board. Oh, this is really interesting because of the equal. So when we take a look at equal, we don't actually test to see if it's the right class. So if it's the same class, then only these comparisons, only then does the comparison make sense. So let's, okay, so now this error message makes more sense. So expected nil, but we got a position. And we actually don't want the position, we want possible moves. Okay. All right, so let's, this looks like it's a problem in movestir. Okay, so in movestir, we have the piece, but we're not upcasing it. So we need to, and also piece here is a symbol, so we need to turn this into a string. So piece stir upcase. If we could always upcase it, but let's just do it only if the piece color is black. All right, so it looks good. So we'll just copy this. And since this is getting long, let's just break this up. Okay. Passes. All right. So we have queen movement. Okay. As for the king, there are some other things we need to do for the king. So it cannot castle when in check. So let's set up a castling position. So a king on e1 and a rook on h1, and it's in check. So I'll put a black rook on e8. Okay, so when I say, oh, actually this one I need to say position and say possible move. Okay, this one not to include castle. So you can't castle because you're in check. Okay, so we see that castling is included, so we have to make sure it's not included. So that should be under possible moves. So let's look at possible moves. All right. All right. So let's see. I'm putting a rescue for illegal move because and it'll return nil, so that means it won't be included. So let's try to make that move. Dupe move from to. Do we have a from? Okay, I don't think we have a from. See, fine. Oh, we do have a from. From is right here. Okay, and we have a to. Okay, so if we try to move from there to there, and it's an illegal move because it leaves the king in check, then it should not be included. Okay. Okay. It still has castling. Oh, that's this is interesting. Let me get rid of this and see what happens. We notice that there's a lot of entries here. And we have a rook that is on e8. So all of these rook moves are not included, didn't get included because that would leave the king in check. So that actually does this. So I'm gonna leave that in there, and that actually does something. But the test doesn't actually reflect it. Actually, this is solving a different problem. So I'm going to just comment this out for now. So this way, okay. So this leaves it basically in the same format it was. And I'll have to create another test to make sure that this works. So in this case, it's defined that's the problem. Okay, is it defined? Okay, so actually it is this that's the problem. So so we actually do want to do this and say if you move and you're in check, if it's a legal move and you went into and you're left in check, actually this is not correct because it's not after you move, it is before you move. So let's just okay, this is going back and forth. Okay, so it actually belongs over here. You want to filter this out if you're trying to castle. So how do you know if you're trying to castle? Well, piece is a king, and okay, let's put parentheses here so it'll parse a little better here. Okay, the piece is a king, and 2 minus from, which is So you know you're trying to castle if that's equal to 2, actually the absolute value. So either side, and you're in check. Okay, so let's see if this makes it pass. So, close parentheses. Okay, so we have it passing. So now we need to make another test for that other thing, which is, let's see, you can't leave the king in check. So actually, we can have this as the same situation here, but the test is going to be different because should not include rook h2, for example. Okay, because that would leave the king in check. All right, so we have a failure. Okay, so now we can actually uncomment these and see if they make it go away. Rescue. Oh, because of the if. Okay, there, passed. All right, so let's see. You also can't castle through check. I'll put it right here. Okay, so that means like if you actually happen to have the rook on f8, then the king, in order to castle, it has to go from e1, f1, and g1. So it has to go through the f file, and that should not be allowed. Okay, but it is. So let's go back here, and now for the 2, actually we only want to do this if it's a castling. Okay. Okay, so if you're castling, then let's take a look at the, let's put it in there. The intermediate square would be 2 plus from divided by 2, which is just the average. If you move there and in check, okay, I might as well just do it and check. Then we're just going to raise illegal move. And the illegal move, actually in this case, it really doesn't make a difference, so what we put in here, so we'll just do this. Okay, so passes. So now you can't castle through check. Okay. All right. The other thing is it castles through a clear path. So that means that if you have a position where let's try a black queenside castle. So that would be lowercase k on e8 and lowercase rook on a8 with turn being black. And let's put something in there. Let's just something like a a bishop on b8. Okay, so we have a bishop on b8, so castling should not be allowed because the path is not clear. And so possible moves. It should not include long castle. Okay. All right, so it does include long castle, and we have to make sure that it doesn't include it. So when it's doing this, it's actually part of find, because this move should not even be considered, because there are things in the way. Okay, so we should actually have a test here to see if you're going to castle. Okay, so I'm going to factor this out. So index E1 or E8, and so you know if you're castling if the king index, actually 2 minus the king index is equal to 2. So you know you're castling. So we wrap this up. So now we can take away this part of the condition. All right. All right, so let's see. Let's go back to the editor. Okay, include, I missed, and. Okay, so we have to make sure that the long castle is not included because of the path. Okay. So this is a kingside castle. So we can say if board F1, F1 or F8 is nil, and board white G1, G8 is nil. Okay. And for the queenside castling, there's 3 squares we need to take a look at. So, all right. So it's B, C, and D. Okay, so everything passes. Okay, so we have basically all the rules for castling. So you can't castle through check, you can't castle when you're in check, and the path has to be clear. The last item that we need to write for possible moves is the pawn. Okay, so let's take a look at the pawn. Start off with a regular pawn move. So I have a pawn on E3. And there should only be one move, which is E4. So this should pass, because it's something that has already been considered when we were looking through the PGN file. Actually, let's just keep this here, because there is another situation where now you have, and we'll just sort it, so this way it doesn't matter the ordering. So E3 should also be included. Okay, so we have the basic pawn movement, and capturing is going to be difficult. Actually, before we do this, we should say that if there are anything blocking the way, so let's have a black pawn on e4. So there's a pawn blocking the way. So now the list should be empty. There shouldn't be any possible moves. Okay, that passes. That's good. As well as for this too. So if I have a black pawn on e3, then that too should also be empty. Okay, good. All right, the sanity check worked. Okay, so those are for pawn movements, but and we also have to think about promotion as well too. Expect all right, let's look at pawn capture. So there's a pawn on e2 and a piece. Let's say black pawn on d3. So the capture should be included in here. So if we do possible moves, that should include ED. Okay. Let's see what the result is. Just to make sure. So pawn on e2 can go to e3, e4, and there's the take. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so that's one of the pawn captures. En passant capture. Okay, so let's look at en passant. Got a pawn. This time the pawn has to be on the 5th square because the black pawn is going to be on the 4th square, so d4. And the en passant square has to be defined to be on, actually, wrong square, d5. It's d6 is the en passant square. So this time let's be explicit about this. And this, okay, we've got the bracket. Oh, possible moves. Okay, there's a problem with this in that this is supposed to say ED instead of ED6. ED6 is still correct, but I wanted to say ED. So let's go back here and just try to see. That would be under movester. Okay. So possible pawn position. These are actually looking at the rows. So okay, it looks for all the pawns that's on that column. And then it looks for, okay, let's break this up because the line is a bit long. So we have the target. So that's the capturing position. And this says it must be of the opposite color. But I'm going to say or here because there's the en passant situation. And the en passant situation is defined as the piece being a pawn and 2 is equal to en passant. If that's true, then the row is going to be, actually, the row is 0 through 7, so I have to add 2, just like 2 is added over here because of the border. That is equal to 2, and then I have to divide it by 10 because we just want the row. Okay, so that should take care of it. Okay, expected nil, but we got that. Oh, we didn't. Um, hmm. Oh, let's put a debugger over here. Um, okay, so we were in an en passant situation, and let's take a look at possible pawn position. So we have a number there, 3, and let's take a look at possible pawn position. It's empty, so it got filtered out. So let's see why it got filtered out. Um, okay, so oh, I see why. Okay, let's quit. The reason is because the from and to. So when we were looking at the row, over here I said that the row is where the pawn is located, the row in which the pawn is located. But I'm comparing the row with to. I'm actually supposed to use from, because this is where the pawn is. So I want to make sure that if it is en passant, then I want to also include the en passant pawn in this list, because the regular situation is if you're going to do a capture, you have to make sure that the target area has a piece, but the target area doesn't have a piece if it's en passant. So that's why I have to make the special case. Okay, so let's see, just pass this now and take a look at possible pawn, and it's still there. So this is good. So let's get rid of the debug, and this should pass now. Okay, actually it didn't pass, but it really did. So because we need to update the test, and this is what we expected. Okay, so now we have the ED over here. Okay, so we have en passant capture, we have regular capture. We should also handle pawn promotions as well. So let's see. Uh, this is going to be tricky because I don't know if we have anything that supports pawn promotion, but we should. Um, okay, so let's see. Okay, so if I have a pawn on e7, then I expect possible moves. Let's see, that should be e8 equals, actually knight comes first, no, bishop comes first. Then we have e8 equals bishop, knight, queen, and rook. So these are the 4 promotion types. Okay, so we got e8. So, all right, see how this would work, because I don't think the structure for possible moves includes a place to have a promotion piece. All right, so let's see where we can add it. All right, so So when we're taking a look at possible moves, we're only returning from and to. So the list is from and to here, and this is a little troublesome. Actually, we can actually have a special case here. So let's see. Let's take a look at these comparisons. Okay, so this is for capture. And okay. All right, so we have to make this a little bit more complicated now. So what we'll do is we'll have result, and the result is going to be, let's say nil, and then we're going to add to the result. The result is going to be from to if everything works out. And if it does work out, then we can do a little check here. So if result and we're dealing with a pawn. And if it's white, actually two column, and not two column. So this will get the row. It's equal to, if you're white, then we're looking at 2. These are magic numbers. I don't really like magic numbers, but for now I just want it to pass, and then refactoring is like another step. So I don't want to do two things at once. Okay, so 2, and for black, normally it would be 7 because it's 0 base 7, but then we add 2 to it, so it's 9. So these are the rows on the ends, which is the promotion rows. So if this is it, then we actually want to let's see. Okay, so if it's not a normal promotion, then we need to just say let's see. Okay. Actually, we should actually do a flat map here. Okay, this is starting to get necessary because when you do a map, if you have one item, then that maps to one item. But in this case, when we do a promotion, we can have like 4 different results, and so we want to put this as a list and put into the resulting list. It makes more sense once we see the code. So so we'll artificially just, actually we can just since it's a flat map, we can just have this as an empty list, and result instead of result, we can just say item, just to keep it separate. And we just want the result. Okay. But in this case, we wanted 4 different ways. So if it's white, we have rook, knight, bishop, queen. That's if you're white, and if you're black, it's lowercase. Okay. And you want to do probably a map. Okay. And this would be the piece, promote. This is the promote piece. Okay. So you would have the from, to, but include the promote. And result is equal to this. So instead of it just being that one item, that from, to, actually in this case it would be item. Okay. And we can, instead of this, we can actually just say item like this. But I think if from, to, it just makes it look a lot better. Okay. All right, so this is a map, so you end up with a list of these things, and it'll be flat mapped here into the list. Okay. Okay. Things are not highlighted right because, okay, we need to close this. All right, so let's see what happens. Okay, oh, B. We have an extra colon here. Okay, all right, so it looks like we're on the right track because the only difference now is that it's not printing it out, the promotion piece. So let's actually get the promotion. That should be under move stir. See, possible moves. Okay. We now have a third parameter here, promote, and we'll just pass that in as promote. And let's take a look at move stir. Move stir will just have promote, but it'll be nil by default. And okay, so when we're going through here, see, we have all these different if conditions. This is just for a capture, but for a pawn, the promotion can happen. Actually, yeah, I'll just tack it onto these. So promote. If there is a promote, then we'll just say equals promote. Okay. And see, we need to do it over here as well. Not for the castling. Okay, we need to do it for all these. Okay. All right, so let's see. Promote. Okay, so this is 150 right here. Okay, so it's actually supposed to be this. Okay. So for all of these, it's supposed to be a ternary. I could write a function called promote stir. Let's just do that. And promote. And so it'll be equals, actually, if promote, then is just this, else it's an empty string. Okay, so that looks pretty simple, so I'll just include this all over the place. Say promote stir. Okay, make sure everything's lined up. Okay, curly braces, quote. Okay, too much. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see, curly braces. Okay. I think this is the last one. You know, going through this using Ruby as a language, I think that it's not a very good choice for chess. Because there's too many things here where I know that it's just going to be expensive in terms of execution. So I'm deliberately not trying to call too many functions. But if I was in a compiled language, then I know that the compiler can optimize away some of those things. And so, and it's, you can see this visibly because, you know, as soon as I do something like, you know, turn something into a function, then you can see it run much slower, visibly slower. Okay, so this takes care of possible moves. So I think I have everything. We have promotions, and let's go take a look. Okay, we have all the piece movements. We have the special cases for the king, the castling. Oh, we should check to see if we are able to capture and promote at the same time. So that's one more thing. Allow pawn promotion upon capture. Okay, so that means that if we have an on e7 and something on d8, so rook on d8, for example, then, well, let's see what we get. Okay, so we have, okay, this actually looks good. I think this is it. Once I get it copied over, I can take a better look. All right, so let me just put this on a separate line. Okay, so we see the regular pawn promotion, bishop, knight, queen, rook, and we see the ED equals B8. Okay, I mean ED equals B, and then, okay, so all of these make sense. I just realized another thing that we need to do before we close off the session is that this is not really making the move for the promotion, because if we go back here to the code, we see that that's a possibility, but when you're actually making the move, for example, if you go to just move, here's move, there it's still the same. There's no promotion. So we need to set up a promotion here. Possible moves. We have the promotion and move. See where, okay. So we have to also include promote. Promote would be the third argument. So promote is equal to, actually we should write a test for this first. This should, see, we already, yeah, we need to save it. Okay. Okay, so we need to go to the regular move because that is not being done upon promotion, upon capture. Actually, just upon promotion is not being handled with move. Um, well, actually, it is handled in terms of reading from a file, which is the algebraic notation, but if you give it coordinate, it doesn't know about it. So we should tell it. See, we should put it right after here, 2args. Okay, it's part of this pawn promotion. Okay. See, a pawn on e7. E7, E8, queen. Okay. All right. So now this position should look like a pawn, not a pawn, a queen on E8 with turn is black. And the half move is, actually half move is still 0, so we don't even have to have that. Okay, so this should fail. And once we make this pass, we should, so the only difference is that it didn't replace the promotion. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so is equal to args3, actually 2, if, actually I think we can get away with just doing this. Let's see. Okay, so everything passed. All right, so so we have all the necessary mechanism for a computer to make moves. So we have possible move lists, possible moves that the computer can choose from. And if the computer just plays randomly, it's still a valid chess game. It doesn't know any terminating conditions such as checkmate, stalemate, and so forth. But in the next session, we will create those conditions and start writing the new algorithm for the computer to pick a good move. And it's going to be a little bit difficult because we used minimax before, and minimax, especially with Ruby, since Ruby is kind of slow, it's going to take a lot of time. Normally, I would probably let it run for like a minute, and I think that's probably what I'll do for the next one is edit it so that you don't have to wait a whole minute for the computer to move. So it'll be a very slow program. So I'll see you next time.